All right, picture this. A swarm of drones working together like perfectly in sync, carrying out attacks with deadly precision. And get this, no human intervention. Sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Well, get this. It's not sci-fi anymore. This is the reality of the HX-2.
Oh, I know the HX-2.
It's this brand new AI-powered attack drone developed by a German company, Helsing.
Yeah.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into this thing, see what makes this drone so unique, what it can do, the whole 9 yards.
I like it. A deep dive.
But also, we're going to look at the potential dangers of autonomous weaponry. This whole idea of machines making decisions in warfare. Kind of scary stuff.
Yeah, it's a big topic for sure. A lot of implications to unpack there.
Exactly. So to do this right, we've been digging through a bunch of sources. We got articles from OPEX 360, Future Sciences, and UC Nouvelle, plus some reports on AI and drone technology from Kaspersky and HAL.
Solid sources.
So let's start with the star of the show, the HX-2. What makes this thing so special? Why is everyone calling it a game changer in warfare?
Well, it's more than just another drone, you know. The HX-2, it's designed from the ground up to be different. It represents a huge leap in autonomous technology.
Okay, but what does that mean, a leap? Like, what sets it apart, practically speaking?
Well, one of the key things is how it works with this system called Altra. It's like, imagine software that acts as this central control hub, right? So you have one single operator, and they can command like a whole swarm of these HX-2 drones.
Whoa, so like a one-person army controlling a whole fleet of these things?
Yeah, exactly. But it's not just about remote control like you'd have with a regular drone. It's about orchestrated attacks, like a synchronized ballet of destruction.
Kind of terrifying when you put it like that, but fascinating at the same time. So how does that actually work?
The Ultra system, it allows the HX-2 to work together with recon drones. They can share data, target information, and then they can carry out these precise strikes all in unison.
So they're like coordinating in real time, sharing intel and deciding on attacks together.
Exactly. It's pretty remarkable.
That's some next level stuff.
Yeah.
But honestly, what really has me intrigued is the AI. You mentioned autonomous technology. How does the HX-2's onboard AI contribute to all this?
Oh, the AI is what really sets this thing apart. It gives the HX-2 a level of autonomy we haven't really seen in most drones. Like, think about it. This drone can actually operate even when GPS and communication signals are blocked.
Wait, so even if you can't send it signals, it can still function?
Yep. Instead of relying on external signals, the HX-2 uses image analysis and onboard maps.
So it's like looking at its surroundings, comparing them to what it has stored in its memory.
Exactly. It can determine its location and navigate, even without traditional guidance.
That's wild. Like, it's thinking for itself, in a way.
In a way, yeah. It's this built-in resilience. Makes the HX-2 super effective in tough environments where signals might be disrupted.
Makes sense. It's got to be reliable, especially in a combat situation. But you said that's just one aspect of the AI. What else does it do?
Right. So the AI also allows the HX-2 to make decisions on the fly. It can adapt to changing conditions, making it crazy responsive in combat.
So it can react faster than a human could, like if a target suddenly moves or something unexpected happens.
Exactly. That kind of responsiveness, it gives the HX-2 a real edge.
It's almost like giving a weapon its own brain.
Yeah.
That's both impressive and kind of unsettling, don't you think?
Yeah, it's definitely raising a lot of ethical questions. That's something we'll definitely need to dive into more later.
For sure. But before we go there, you mentioned something else about the AI, something about efficiency.
Right. The AI also helps to maximize performance while using the least amount of energy. That means the HX-2 can operate for longer, cover more ground.
So it's not just about raw power, it's about using that power strategically, making the most of its resources. Okay, so it's clear the HX-2 is a major step forward in drone technology. But is this a one-off? Or is this part of a bigger trend, this whole autonomous weapons thing?
Oh, it's definitely a global trend. Lots of countries are pouring resources into developing autonomous weapons. They see the potential, the advantages this kind of tech offers.
Like who? Which countries are leading the charge on this?
Well, the U.S. is definitely up there. They've got platforms like the MQ-9 Reaper and the experimental MQ-20 Avenger.
I've heard of the Reaper. Pretty sure some reputation.
Yeah.
What about the Avenger? What's so special about that one?
That one is all about stealth and range. It can fly further, stay hidden longer, and carry a bigger payload.
Sounds like something straight out of a Tom Clancy novel.
Yeah, kinda. But it's real, and it's just one example. Israel's got their Heron TP drone, a big multi-mission platform that can fly for ages.
It's like a flying tank, basically.
Pretty much. And then you've got Turkey making waves with their Bayraktar TB2. That one's interesting because it's relatively cheap, but it's been super effective in a bunch of conflicts.
So even countries without massive military budgets can get in on this game.
It seems that way, yeah. And then, of course, you've got China. Their drone program is advancing super fast, especially with the Wing Lung series. Those are known for being adaptable and having long endurance.
It seems like everyone's getting in on this. It's not just the usual suspects anymore.
Right. And even countries like France and the UK, traditionally, they've relied a lot on conventional air power, but now they're also investing heavily in autonomous drones.
So this is a global arms race then. Everyone's trying to get ahead in this new era of warfare.
Yeah, you could say that. It's not just a few superpowers anymore. It's a global phenomenon. Lots of players involved.
What about countries with, like, smaller defense budgets? Are they being left behind in all this?
Actually, not necessarily. Even smaller nations are showing interest in these systems. Like India, for example, they're trying to get their hands on American MQ-9B drones, but they're also working on developing their own autonomous capabilities.
So this technology is becoming more accessible.
It is. And
Yeah.
that comes with both opportunities and a whole lot of risks.
Yeah, that accessibility is a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? On the one hand, it levels a playing field, but on the other hand...
It could make these weapons more prone to falling into the wrong hands.
Exactly. Well, it seems like we're on the verge of a major shift in warfare, and the HX-2 is right at the forefront of that shift. But as we've touched on, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to the implications of all this, the ethical concerns, the potential dangers. We can't ignore that side of the story.
Definitely not.
So in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore those potential dangers. We'll delve into the ethical concerns surrounding autonomous weaponry and try to understand what this all means for the future of warfare.
So yeah, autonomous weapons like this HX-2 we've been talking about, they have the potential to really change how wars are fought, the whole landscape of warfare.
Right, and not all for the better, I imagine.
Exactly. With this potential comes a whole bunch of ethical and practical concerns. Stuff that, honestly, keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, the idea of machines, making life or death decisions on the battlefield without any human intervention,
Yeah.
it's pretty unsettling.
It is.
So what are some of the specific dangers that people are worried about? What are the experts saying?
Well, one of the big ones is the risk of unintended consequences. Like,
Yeah.
imagine a scenario where you've got this autonomous drone, right? It's relying on its AI algorithms to identify targets.
Okay, yeah.
But then it misidentifies something. It mistakes a civilian vehicle for, I don't know, an enemy tank or something.
Oh, wow. That's a chilling thought. A machine making that kind of mistake, it could lead to, well, a real tragedy, something you can't just take back.
Exactly. And the chances of those kinds of errors happening, they go up as these systems get more and more complex, more autonomous. There's a lot of debate about this, but some people who are in favor of these autonomous weapons, they actually argue that they can make warfare safer.
Safer? How so?
Their argument is that it reduces human error. They say that humans, we make mistakes because of fear, anger, emotions.
Right.
But a machine, it doesn't have those emotions. It just processes information, makes decisions based purely on the data it's given and its programming.
So they're basically saying machines are more rational, less prone to making bad calls under pressure.
That's the gist of it, yeah.
I can see that side of it. But even with super advanced algorithms, can we really eliminate the possibility of, like, unforeseen circumstances? Or a machine misinterpreting the data? The world's a messy place, right? Lots of nuances that might be hard for even the most advanced AI to grasp.
That's a really important point, and it's at the heart of a lot of the debate around this technology. Critics of autonomous weapons, they say that relying solely on a machine's judgment in a chaotic environment like a battlefield is just inherently risky.
Yeah, there are always going to be those unpredictable elements, things you can't program for.
Exactly. They say human oversight is crucial. We need clear ethical guidelines to govern how these systems are developed and used. We can't just hand over the reins completely.
It seems like the lack of accountability is a big problem, too. Like, if an autonomous weapon does screw up, makes a bad call that leads to civilian casualties, who's responsible? The programmer, the manufacturer, the military commander who deployed it.
That question of accountability is one of the thorniest issues with this tech. Our current legal frameworks, ethical norms, they just don't really have a good answer for how to assign blame when the decision was made by an algorithm.
It's like we're in this totally new ethical landscape and we don't have a map yet.
It's a good way to put it. We're in uncharted territory, both technologically and ethically.
So unintended consequences, accountability, Those are big ones. What other concerns are people raising?
Well, another big worry is the potential for hacking, or just malicious control in general. Imagine a scenario where some terrorist organization, they manage to gain control of a whole swarm of autonomous drones.
Ugh, it's a scary thought. Turning those weapons against their creators or against innocent people, the consequences could be devastating.
Absolutely. And the thing is, while developers are aware of this risk and they're trying to build in security measures to protect these systems from hacking, well, as with any tech, there's always the possibility that someone will find a way to exploit a weakness.
It's that constant back and forth between those building the defenses and those trying to break them, like a high-stakes game of cat and mouse.
Exactly. And with these weapons, the stakes are higher than ever.
Okay, so hacking's a big worry. Anything else?
Yeah, some experts are worried that autonomous weapons could actually make countries more likely to start conflicts.
Really? Explain that one to me.
The thinking is that if nations believe they can fight wars without risking the lives of their own soldiers, they might be more willing to initiate hostilities or to escalate an existing conflict. They might see it as a cleaner, less risky way to achieve their goals.
That's a disturbing thought. So these weapons could actually destabilize things, make the world a more dangerous place, even if that's not the intention.
It's a real concern, and a lot of experts share it. They worry that this could lead to a new kind of arms race. Everyone trying to develop the most sophisticated, the deadliest autonomous weapon systems. And that could lead to even more proliferation, making these weapons more accessible to smaller nations, even non-state actors. It's a recipe for disaster, potentially.
So given all these concerns, are there any efforts being made to actually regulate these weapons, to, put some rules in place?
There are, yeah. Several organizations and initiatives are pushing for international agreements to control, maybe even ban these weapons.
That makes sense. Like, better to get ahead of this thing before it gets completely out of control.
Exactly. There's this group called the Campaign to Stop Killer Robots. It's a coalition of NGOs, and they're advocating for a preemptive ban. They say it's way easier to prevent these weapons from being developed in the first place than it is to try to control them once they're already out there.
It makes sense. Kind of like, closing the barn door before the horse gets out. Are there any other groups working on this?
Yeah, the United Nations, they've been holding discussions on lethal autonomous weapons systems since 2014 as part of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons.
Okay.
Now, they haven't reached a consensus on a ban yet, but the fact that these conversations are happening, it's a good sign.
It shows that people are taking this seriously, that the international community at least recognizes the need to address these concerns.
Exactly.
It sounds like a tough challenge, though, finding that balance between, advancing technology, making sure we don't fall behind, but also being responsible, thinking about the ethical implications. It's a lot to juggle.
It is. It's this delicate balancing act.
Well, it's definitely a topic that deserves more attention, more discussion. We can't just bury our heads in the sand and pretend this isn't happening.
I agree.
Well, in the final part of our deep dive, I think it'd be good to explore that balancing act a bit more. Talk about the potential benefits, but also the ethical challenges of autonomous weaponry. Because, we're moving into this uncharted territory, and we need to be prepared for what lies ahead. So we've talked about the HX-2, its capabilities, and we've really dug into the ethical concerns surrounding these autonomous weapons. It's complicated, no easy answers.
It is, yeah.
As we wrap up, I'm really interested in your perspective, finding that balance. How do we move forward with this kind of technology, but do it responsibly?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like walking a tightrope.
Exactly.
On one side, you've got the potential benefits. I mean, you can't deny the advancements here. These systems could really change the way militaries operate.
Right. More effective, maybe even, like some people argue, more humane. Fewer mistakes, less emotion clouding judgment.
Right, exactly. But then on the other side, like we talked about, there are some serious risks. And we can't just ignore those unintended consequences, the possibility of hacking, losing control, and of course that potential for these weapons to make conflict more likely. It's a lot to weigh.
It is. So given all that, how do we even begin to navigate this? What steps can we take to make sure these technologies are developed and used responsibly?
Well, I think the first step has got to be regulations. Clear international rules, governing how these autonomous weapons are developed and used.
Right, some kind of global agreement. Like, are the discussions at the UN a good starting point?
They are. But honestly, we need a more unified effort, something that prevents this whole thing from spiraling into an out-of-control arms race.
Yeah, the stakes are just too high to mess around with this. What about individual countries? What can they do?
Each nation needs to set their own ethical guidelines, regulations for research and development in this area. Transparency is huge, making sure we understand how these systems make decisions, that they can be audited.
Makes sense,
Mm.
especially when we're talking about systems that could have the power to, take a human life. We can't just be in the dark about how those decisions are being made.
Absolutely.
What about the folks who are actually creating this technology? The tech companies, the researchers, do they have a responsibility here too?
Oh, absolutely. They're the ones building these systems. They need to be thinking about the potential consequences, building in safeguards, making sure there's human oversight, that humans are still the ones making the final call, especially in those really critical situations.
So it's not just on governments then. It's a shared responsibility. International organizations, researchers, tech companies, everyone's got to be on board with this.
It really is a collective effort. We can't be passive about this. The choices we make now, they're going to have huge consequences. For warfare, yeah, but maybe even for humanity as a whole.
It's a powerful thought. And a little bit scary, if I'm being honest.
It is.
But ignoring the issue won't make it go away. This HX-2 drone, it's a perfect example of what AI can do, how it's changing things.
Yeah.
But it's also a wake-up call, a reminder that this power comes with a lot of responsibility. We got to get this right.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating and honestly a bit of a sobering conversation.
It has.
But it's a conversation we need to be having. And I hope our listeners walk away from this with a better understanding of what's at stake here. The future of warfare, the future of technology. It's all intertwined. And the choices we make today, they're going to determine what that future looks like. So thanks for listening, everyone. And until next time, keep those critical thinking caps on.